For the past 6 months, you have been hearing conversations from the floor of CEDIA Expo, CIX 2025 in Denver, Colorado. What an absolutely incredible show. Amazing conversations. And I'll tell you why. Home integration, technology, lighting are three areas of the design and architecture industry right now that represent massive opportunities because clients have no idea what is available to them. They're not researching it. They're not seeing it in their feeds on social media. They just don't know. It was the experts who were there. It was the creatives, the designers, the architects, the landscape architects, the integrators, the folks that were there in Denver who got to see this product firsthand. Just extraordinary. So this is the final installment. It's episode 6 in the series, Integration, Illumination, and the Future of the Connected Home. And I thought it was important for you to hear 3 distinct voices as they reveal an industry in the midst of transformation, where technology, design, and business are converging in new and unexpected ways. What emerges is not a story about gadgets. And I think that that's a misconception. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I can go to CES to see all the tech. It's not about gadgets. It's about integration at every level. Systems, teams, ideas. The future of the home is being shaped as much by collaboration and communication as by the innovation itself. So today, you are going to hear from Jason Knott, Hagan Kappler, and Bob Schuppe. Each bring a different lens to the evolving world of residential technology, exploring how integrators, designers, and architects must align to meet rising expectations around performance, aesthetics, and long-term value. I want to give you an example of something that you might not have heard before, except on this show, but you're going to hear a lot more about it in the future. So one of the things that you have heard a lot about on the show is the fires in Southern California from January of 2025. And I'm sure everyone saw 2 images that really stood out. One was the blue Volkswagen Bug that survived, and the other was the passive house that survived. And both are relevant here. First of all, the Bug, because all of these interviews were recorded live from the convention center in a VW ID Buzz, which was absolutely amazing. But the other being the passive house. Imagine that a home is so smart that the vents in the attic space and the vents in the eaves have articulating arms, and the house has a brain that is connected to the weather service. So if there is a fire that is approaching a home, when it gets to 1 mile, 2 miles away, because the weather service information and artificial intelligence is processing how far an ember can fly and the wind direction and the distance, that the home can automatically close the eaves and vents so that no embers can get into the attic space. We're not close to that. We're there. That is possible today. Lighting plans. Every designer talks about lighting plans, and it's interesting because most designers will allow their photographers who are shooting the projects to Photoshop out a lot of the things that make lighting and power distribution plans visible. But what's possible now is absolutely incredible. So I want you to hear these 3 conversations because they're important, and I think you're going to enjoy them. And you have time because in third quarter of 2026, you have a chance to go to CEDIA Expo, CIX, which will be in Denver again. So make your plans accordingly after you hear the following conversation. First up is Jason Knott of D-Tools, and you're going to hear it all right after this. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me say this, that the most important word in the design industry is service. Product is important, price is important, selection is important, but stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of a project, any project. How design professionals like you demand great service and your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commission sales professionals. It's really important. It means that their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of experience in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. Now, you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy gift cards, e-gift cards, or 2.5% in rewards checks for every qualified and delivered sale. In addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more than I could possibly tell you about here. And the cherry on top is access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service, again, from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific Sales expert at a showroom today for full details and to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights.
My name is Jason Knott. I am with D-Tools. D-Tools is the leading software provider for business management for the custom electronics industry. I've been with them for a couple of years. My title is actually a really funny one. It is the Data Solutions Architect and Evangelist. And when I told my mom that I was an architect and evangelist, there was this pregnant pause, and she said, "My son, the minister." So, true story.
Family must be so proud.
Yes.
Give me your background. How do you get to where you are today? What was the journey like?
So this is actually, I was thinking, we were talking about it last night. This is my 26th CEDIA Expo that I've been to.
26th,
yeah. I haven't missed on one. I know they didn't have it the one pandemic year, but then they had a minimal one of the pandemic year. I was actually here, but I've actually been involved in this industry, low voltage electronics, for 36 years. So I started out in 1990 as the editor and chief and publisher of a publication targeted towards the security industry, low voltage security integrators. Many security integrators migrated into home automation and home controls. I kind of followed that lead. So from 2000 until 2023, I was then the editor-in-chief of a publication called CE Pro. And then in 2023, I migrated over to D-Tools last 2 years.
Tell me about CEDIA Expo, CIX 2025.
So it's every year it's always something new, and it's funny because we do hear the mantra of, gee, there's not a lot new. You know, there's no, like the launch of DVD or when CDs came out, you know, that was like revolutionary. But the stuff that's new a few years ago was revolutionary, and now it's become evolutionary. And you look at the show floor now, and 5 years ago, you wouldn't have seen a single lighting fixture manufacturer on that show floor. You would not have seen a single video wall manufacturer on that show floor. Now you see these as prominent technologies out there that integrators are installing. So yeah, not every year can be the launch of, you know, the Apple commercial that came out in 1980 that we all remember that was so famous. Now that can't happen every year, but there's a lot of evolution taking place on the technology front.
There's two sides to that coin. The first is tech made available, and the other side is tech applied, right?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to me because there have been a couple of themes in the 2 days, now 3 days that we've been talking in this incredible Volkswagen ID Buzz. Thank you, CEDIA, for providing this. This is so great. But there is a certain lack of interior designers and architects that are here at CEDIA. And I don't say that as a bad thing. I say that as it's an incredible opportunity. Because you talk about the technology and available. In the last 26 years, you've seen a lot of things.
Yeah, and you'd hit a sticking point with the industry, and that's why it's important. Things like lighting, just as an example, why lighting fixtures have become important is because every house has lighting, but not every house has a home theater. Not every house has a voice control or all the different technologies you might see, motor A shades and those sorts of things. But every house has lighting, and so at the very base planning stage of every home, there is going to be a need for lighting. And for the integrators now, since the LED revolution basically took us out of the realm solely of the electrician and brought it into the realm of a low voltage company to be able to do lighting fixtures, now you are involved in the project much, much earlier. You're involved at the very beginning planning stages. You're looking at the blueprints with the architect. You're talking with the general contractor and the builder. That's very, very important. And the designer. Lighting design is very, very important. So I just throw out that as a single technology that has done exactly kind of help break down that sticking point that you just mentioned of being able to get in with the design community. One other thing I'll bring up that I didn't mention earlier from a trend standpoint, and I'm sure you've probably talked about it with some of your other guests already, is just the AI trend. We don't want. I can remember when green was coming out, and then we kind of similarly heard wellness have this well washing or green washing, where now all of a sudden everybody was green, or everybody was wellness, and so now it's AI, and everybody's AI. It's just beginning to hit this industry. I see great applications for it taking place, especially on the security side, for the ability to analyze what you see in the captured images. We are utilizing at D-Tools AI, so we've incorporated it into the ability to create proposals more quickly. So that's also a big trend I should have mentioned earlier.
Talk to me about D-Tools. Tell me about your suite of products.
So D-Tools has been around for 26 years, and it started solely with an on-premise solution called D-Tools System Integrator, SI, that still exists today. Then in 2018, we launched another product called D-Tools Cloud, and that's our web-based version. Both systems are highly capable for proposal building, scheduling, inventory management, project management, service management, payments. They both have a little bit different feature sets. System Integrator, primarily one of the big differentiators is that it's fully customizable and it integrates with Visio and AutoCAD for dynamic drawings, especially suitable for very large projects that require that sort of stuff. And then Cloud doesn't have that capability, but it has minimal drawing capability built into it. But Cloud has some other features like built-in payments and things like that SI doesn't have. So the eventual goal is that both of these equivalent products, both the on-premise solution, which is SI, and the web-based solution, which is Cloud, will be equivalent in short order.
So the suite of products that you have, the tools that you have, are for the integrators.
Yeah, so our biggest competition is Microsoft Word and Excel. So there are still companies here, integration companies, that have not invested in industry-specific software to help them run and manage their businesses. They're still writing their proposals in Microsoft Word, and they're still doing their budgeting in Excel. So the fact we have this end-to-end business management solution that has both that proposal capability as well as that ability to manage the project, your labor, your margins, your scheduling, your, as I mentioned, inventory management, your project management, your service management. All of those things are built into a single piece of software. So it's an evolution that integrators need to take. It's software is not fun and easy. Let's be honest. It's intimidating, and people see moving or adopting a piece of software as a daunting task. but once they do it, it's a sea change to their business. In fact, there was some data that my former publication that I worked for, CE Pro, did recently in 2024 that I saw that the integrators who are using an end-to-end business management system have a 13% higher profit than ones who are not. So that's right to the bottom line.
And I believe that. Look, any type of functionality and how you can use it efficiently. Efficiency really is the name of the game now, right? Do you have the ability through the suite of products, do you have an option for architects and interior designers and landscape architects?
So it's funny you should ask, because we actually have about 1,000 end users who use the system integrator software to design their buildings. University of Colorado, we're here in Denver, they actually use our software to design their facilities when they're building new buildings or structures or redesigning structures on the campus, either for the purposes of having their internal staff do it, or they're putting it out, they're creating a bid specification that they're going to put out there for other people. So yes, the answer is yes. I think you need to be a much more highly sophisticated architect or interior designer who would be using the software. Primarily the ones that we see that are not integrators that are using it, however, are going to be these large end user facilities, organizations that are wanting to use our software capability to design their systems.
Anytime you take into account certain types of personalities, you attach characteristics based on historical reference, right? It's so funny, I'm looking at you, you're like, where is he going with this? My question is this. Integrators who have been doing this for 25 or 30 years are kind of set in their ways a little bit. And it's not just them, it's builders, it's contractors, it's developers. It's one of those things where learning is hard and changing the way that you do business is hard. But I have to believe, because of where we are right now, we're at a transformational moment in every aspect of AV home tech, right? Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're an interior designer and you're using AutoCAD, every interior designer, every high quality interior designer that I've spoken with over the last 13 years, nowadays, every single one of them has a lighting plan that they apply to every single room that they do. And every architect has obviously been using these tools forever. It's almost like a adapt or die.
Yeah, and so the importance of that communication that has to take place is, think about the lighting plan could be put together by the interior designer or even the architect, and then they've got to make sure that now comes the integrator comes along, and he's going to do in-ceiling architectural speakers as part of a multi-room audio or a home theater solution. Well, the positioning of the joists may not be ideal for getting that ideal sound for the positioning of the speakers. Oh wait, right where I want to put that speaker, you have a ceiling light, or you have a joist, or there's an HVAC vent. That's why this whole communication and that has to take place between the integrator and the interior designer. I know I talk to a lot of integrators who have, very, I would say they all have different relationships with their interior designers. And one of the most successful relationships that I hear is when the integrator is kind of sets aside the ego and says, you know what, I'm going to let you, the interior designer, jointly present or even present the technology solutions with me to the client. So it's not just like, hey, I'm the tech guy, I know what I'm talking about, let me take over. They have a joint relationship with a designer presenting the technology. Those tend to be the most successful.
It almost sounds to me like D-Tools is a de-escalator.
It's certainly a de-escalator of stress.
No, that's what
that's for sure.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed here, this CEDIA Expo, CIX 2025, for me personally and professionally, has been nothing short of transformational. It's been absolutely remarkable because I haven't had the opportunity in years past, I haven't made the opportunity in years past to sit down with integrators and to understand from the AV home tech community what their needs are as it relates to the shelter industry.
Yeah, and you only get that by asking the questions. I did some sessions at KBiz, and I brought interior designers and integrators together, and when the integrator is willing to listen to, there's no stupid question. In other words, ask any question. I can remember doing a whole session, and the integrator was going through all this, lighting and home theater and control systems and networking and climate control and all these solutions. And the first question that was asked by the audience of interior designers was, where do you recommend we put the Alexa in the kitchen, on the kitchen countertop? So the integrator hadn't even thought to get just to that level of, okay, let me talk about where you should be putting this technology. And one of the things I'll say, and you've probably seen it if you looked around the show, is hiding the technology is key. A lot of people don't want to see wall acne of a million, or ceiling acne of all these devices that are plugged around on the ceiling or plugged around on the wall. How can these things be hidden? And that's a whole culture industry within this industry on its own.
So Jason, it's like you're reading my mail, man. I mean, seriously. So I got a couple of things to follow up with. A, I'm going to challenge your assertion, and I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. There absolutely are stupid questions. However, and by the way, in doing this for as long as I've been doing it, I've asked many of them. You don't, and I've come to the conclusion that maybe they're not stupid, they're just pedestrian. And because of that, if you don't ask stupid questions, you don't get to real answers. If you try to form the most intelligent question you can muster, but you don't have the base knowledge to ask the real issues, you don't ever get to the issues that you really want to know about. And I think that's where we are now, because there's a language barrier. There's a language gap. The other part of that is this was the first week that I ever heard the term wall acne or ceiling acne. I've never heard that before. It is part of my vernacular, and I will be using it constantly, and I'll tell you why. Because to your point, and to your credit, you're absolutely right. All these, and I've told this story a dozen times already, but a lot of the designers I talk to, we talk about how they do what they do, and then we get into why they do what they do, and then we show what they do because we go to the portfolio page and we start looking at their work. And one of the things that I started asking these questions because more and more designers are having their every project professionally shot. And I started asking the questions like, where are the cans? Where are the recessed lighting? Where are the speakers? Where are the outlets? Where are the switches? Where are the controls? And they say, oh, we photoshopped them out.
Yep.
To which my reply is, well, it feels a little disingenuous to me that you create a design, but when you photograph it to show others, you're not. It's not a proud issue, but you're thinking for other people. They don't want to see that. You may be right, but if that's the case, why don't you go find an integrator?
Yeah, no, and I don't believe they should Photoshop those out. There should be a reality element to what they're showing for sure. And but think about, we had a room above the garage that we added onto the house a few years ago, and I was like all excited. It's an oversized garage. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be where I have the big screen TV, and I've got the in-ceiling speakers, and I was like, I wanted to get a projector, and my wife's like, I don't want a projector hanging from the ceiling, because that would have been the only place to have done it. Would have been a ceiling mount, so I would have had to have gotten a lift to drop it down from the ceiling and hide it, and of course I've got like 9 speakers in the ceiling, and I've got an in-wall subwoofer and all these different things, and so it was really important. It was eye-opening for me, where she rejected it. She's like, no, we're not going to have that. So we have a large screen TV in there. It's fine. It's not exactly what I wanted out of the gate, but it turned out great. And it all just comes down to that communication factor.
And you also hit on something that I think is really important. Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
If you can't have exactly what you want, and by the way, planning for the future, so you put a wall mount up, and you know what? Maybe after coming to CEDIA Expo 2025, you see what's capable in an LED panel, and next year the CapEx investment in your home is for that wall panel, which, by the way, can be completely disappeared when you're not watching it. It could be a fish tank, or it could be art, or it could be any number of other things due to the modern technology.
Yeah, I don't even want to admit that the TV that I have up there is about 2.5 inches thick right now.
I wasn't going to ask you. Plasma.
Yeah, it's not a plasma, thank God, but it's a big fat one, and it's I think 65 inch, and the wall is massive. It's this huge wall, and it kind of looks like the nose a little bit because it's an empty wall there. So it can accommodate a much bigger television and a much thinner one, and as you say, one that could be hidden with all the visual things they have, like from Media Decor and things like that or even Samsung, where they have the mirrored or the matte finish, art television. Haven't gotten there yet. So baby steps with my wife.
Baby steps. You know what? And that should be the motto.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Baby steps and wall acne.
Baby steps, wall acne, ceiling acne. Thank you, integrators, for introducing me to that term. Listen, Jason, this was fantastic. With your permission, I'd like to keep this conversation going. I'd love to have you back on the show, and I'd love to keep talking about this.
I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. Up next is Hagan Kappler of Daisy.
Hagan Kappler, Daisy, and Daisy is a national brand of custom integrators. I'm the CEO and co-founder. And what do? I just try to help all of our teammates make their lives easier, help them grow. And then I'm also a mom of 4 kids, so I do a lot. I make a lot of spaghetti and meatballs.
I love that. I love that. Talk to me about CEDIA Expo here in Denver. How's the show?
Awesome. It's been great. We have a booth this year, so I've been pretty heads down in the booth, meeting new people who I've never met before. Now it's my 3rd time here, so I actually now feel a little bit like I can say hi to folks who I do know. I got a little bit of a lay of the land. Also, we've brought 25 or 30 of our team members, so owners of different branches, leaders of different branches around the country. A little bit of a reunion for our team, so we're having a lot of fun over there.
That's awesome. That's amazing. It's funny. So you've been to 3 editions, or this is the 3rd or the 4th? Third. What do you? And I get that you're in the booth, head down, talking to people. I get that. But what are you seeing outside of that? Are there any themes that you're noticing? What are you hearing this year?
Well, because we're talking to folks about ways where we could be helpful, and they're also coming to us kind of, if folks are coming to our booth, they're curious about what we're up to because they've seen press around acquisitions we've done in their areas, and so maybe they're curious, maybe they're nervous, and so we're just trying to clarify those things. And they're also just asking kind of, any advice that that we could offer in terms of growth or tools that they might be able to tap into. So those are some of the things that I'm hearing are just trends around consolidation, ideas around exit strategies, folks who are getting to a point in their trajectory of their business that maybe they've plateaued a bit and they're just thinking, maybe there's an opportunity for me to take my business to the next level, and maybe I don't want to necessarily do it the way that I've been doing it for the last 10 years. There's also ways in which we can help in terms of sales and those types of things that people are asking about. So, just brainstorming and working we're better together than you are on your own. And I think everybody in the industry would agree with that.
Talk to me about the footprint of the company. The footprint of the company geographically, and then primarily who you work with. Are you working with the interior design community? Are you working primarily with architects, with the homeowner? Who are you working with?
Footprint of the company, we have now over 20 locations. We just did our largest acquisition in New York City with a company called Electronic Environments New York, or ENI. So we now have a location in New York City and in the Hamptons. I'm originally from New Jersey, so I love New York City, and so that was always kind of a pride project for me. Oh, a Daisy van just drove by. Anyway, so we have now locations here in Denver. We have our largest location is probably Northern California. We have a good footprint there. We have a lot of locations in Florida. We are in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We have a location outside of DC. So we've built out locations in the Northeast, so including Boston, New Jersey, Norwalk, and then we're also in Southern California. In fact, that's where our headquarters is. That's where I live. So we've got presence across the country. And what was your second question?
Who you primarily work with?
Yeah, just we mirror the rest of the industry. Probably 80% of who we work with are custom builders and then architects, interior designers. With the exception of one of our branches, the one in Costa Mesa, they do a really good job working direct with the consumer, with the homeowner, and they are probably 80% of their business is with the consumer. That's where a network of owners across the country can be really helpful, because they can help deliver the best practices to all of our other guys who do a really good job working with builders, but maybe don't want to just be reliant on, kind of the longer lead time that the builders, have us working around. And similarly, the Costa Mesa guys would probably like to, develop more relationships with builders. So that's the kind of power of a network. I will say that we've had a lot of success building out an ongoing service, and that's about, hey, project's not done when the installation is complete. We are all about going back to the consumer every quarter and getting to know a family. We have a CRM now that's built, so we have an end-to-end tech stack where we can support our teams out in the field. That enables us to understand and learn about our consumer. We go back every quarter, we keep up with the family. Family can let us know when things, are not working. That's kind of table stakes, and it's really just about making sure that as tech evolves, we're keeping the consumer, updated about that. But also as the family evolves and their needs evolve, we can kind of stay in touch with them. So, maybe the kids are getting older and they want more privacy, want to, have different kind of shades in their rooms, or different, type of entertainment in the media center, or whatever the case may be. At the same time, the shade technology is evolving, lighting is evolving, right? So this way we can kind of keep the consumer updated as those things evolve. So I think that's going to, that recurring service model and that kind of touch point to the consumer is really changing our business overall.
Well, and if you talk about the evolution in the residential side, massive, just massive. And I think there's this combination between expectations and what homeowners want now.
Right.
Many of which didn't know what was available until they start to see what they can have.
Yeah.
And then you have this changing nature of what residential is.
Right.
You have a multifamily aging in place, and you have to change that environment.
Right.
For 3, sometimes 4 different generations, all under one roof. You have these co-living environments where you have main living spaces and then private residential. It's just, it's changing rapidly. And then you have the fact that, and I love that we're having this conversation, because someone who lives in Dallas has different needs, wants, expectations than someone who lives in Manhattan.
Right.
Southern California in general, the expectations are different. People think an integrator is an integrator and product is product, and you're doing it the same way, and you're really not.
No, that's right. Yeah, and that's a great point. And you could have the same consumer who has, our customers typically will have home in Southern California, home in Park City, home across the country, in Florida, and even their needs in those different homes are different. Yet they want the app to look the same. They want the button on the, wall to act and look the same. So that kind of consistency is also helpful. They don't want to have and they want to have like, one person to call, one team that they can rely on.
I was having a conversation a few months ago with a good friend of mine. Her name's Joan Barton of Dirty Girl Construction.
Oh, cool.
And Joan and I have been friends for a long time. And I remember when Joan and I first met, I was a little sheepish about asking her about being a woman in a predominantly male-driven industry. And she was just like, you shouldn't be questioning that. It's an important topic. It's an important subject matter, which is why I'm glad. And I've had similar conversations with architects.
Yeah.
And I want to have the conversation with you.
Okay.
Yours is a primarily male-driven industry. And I imagine when you got into it, you really noticed it. And maybe now that you've been doing it a while, you don't really notice it as much. But I want to talk about getting more young girls aware of the industry and bringing more young women into the fold. How do we do that?
We've launched an apprentice program. We feel like it's, for us, it's a business decision. It's not, it's social imperative, but it's also just good business because we need more technicians. It's hard to find great talent. This is our most important asset is our technicians, and that's essentially what we're offering the consumer is the technician who's in the home, that service technician who's revisiting with the consumer. And if we're not reaching out to and training women, then we're missing out on 50% of the population. So we've started an apprentice program where we can tap into talented women who maybe, and men who don't, know about this industry because we don't have a, trade school. We're not reaching out to high school kids. Even though the HVAC industry is, and the plumbing industry is, and construction industry is, and those are, you can make a great living doing that. We think that unlike those industries, this may be even better for women. It's a pretty predictable lifestyle, right? It's in some cases our branches work 4 days a week, so that works great if you have a family. It's coding. It's very kind of quiet work. Customer service is really important, and sometimes, 50% of the time, there's a woman in the home who's using this stuff, who's struggling with it. So it might be better from a client hands perspective to have a woman in the home interacting with the decision maker. We think from just a labor pool perspective, and then also from a just understanding who our consumer is, just is good, business sense. So we're investing in it. Our goal is to be at gender parity from a tech side in 5 years. You can hope for a better. Someone said yesterday, we're gonna, it's great. CEDIA is like going to the Capitol Hill, and we're talking to, Washington D.C. about, and that's great. There's nothing wrong. I mean, fantastic that they're doing that. But I don't know about you, but I'm not going to wait for the government to make a difference here, especially when it comes to women advancement. So I mean, I think
at least we can laugh about it.
So I think, and also you can't, like I said, you can't just do it because you think it's the right thing to do, which it is, but you have to do it because you really think there's a business, and we think it'll give us a competitive advantage. So
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
In this conversation, though, there's so much more that goes into that I think that people don't realize. Young girls don't realize that they're not playing, in many cases, maybe because they're not being given an opportunity to play with it, to take, I almost said VCRs apart, but to take a switcher apart, to take apart any kind of technology and put it back together to see how things work. It's almost like boys and girls are trained to think differently. But you've had a big push for young girls and teenage girls to get into the STEM education field, and I think feeding that funnel sort of opens this new door to what possibilities are. And let's be honest, your industry is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Do you have young kids?
My kids, I have one that's just out of college,
Okay.
and my daughter is a junior.
Because I have a 7 and a 9-year-old, and my 7-year-old daughter her favorite subject is technology. She gets exposed to taking apart technology. She's working in computers. She's a little athlete. She's playing sports. She's, my son is very interested and really good at. He's going to be a little comedian. He's more interested. He plays sports too, but he's a little bit more interested in drama. So I think schools are doing a really good job of exposing kids to math and technology. Girls are crushing it in coding and math in schools. So again, in our company, for example, we're going to high schools and we're exposing the kids, the seniors, for those who are interested in trade schools, we're exposing them to opportunities to come work with us, and we have programs to teach these kids who are graduating from high school to training programs. We have a learning management system. Because now of our size and scale, we can get support from the vendors and the manufacturers. I was just talking to someone at Sony who's really passionate about this. So there is support for this. There is investment. And I think at a young age, there's plenty of opportunity.
It's interesting because my kids are older than yours.
Yeah.
And in Southern California, my kids were in a phenomenal school district, but still, we had to introduce them, and we introduced them through Odyssey of the Mind. Mm-hmm. That was how we introduced our kids into STEM technology, and it was funny. My son became an engineer, and my daughter is going into physical therapy and that field. She just wasn't. She enjoyed it, but it just didn't really click with her. But I also think that there still aren't enough opportunities. It's almost like a preconceived pathway that exists, and you have to make the effort to get girls into STEM. Mm-hmm. And it's funny too, because the way boys and girls think are very different, but girls and women are perfectly suited for STEM and technology in more ways because of the way that they think about and process things. Men and women think differently about things, and I don't know if that's a byproduct. We're going way deep into the education process, but yeah. I think it's important to explore it because then you can address it.
Yeah, and I think the other point is results, right? And that's something that we're really keen on. So I'll tell you that our woman-led branch here in Denver is one of our top performing branches. We just signed our first woman franchise location. She's someone who worked for me when I was at Service Master Clean, which is a commercial cleaning business, which had pretty much all men running those operations. I was the CEO. This is not my first time, by the way, being in an all-male industry. It's not something I'm afraid of. It's not something it's not my first rodeo. She's a top performer, and she's going to crush it here. There's plenty of examples where women are, killing it in this space. So for us, we just look at the results, and again, we look at the opportunity. And if someone doesn't want to invest in finding those talented women who love math, coding, STEM, their loss, because truly they're just going to be leaving opportunity on the table. And same goes at the top. I mean, we've got the issue, I think, for our industry is similar to the fact that there's 50% of the labor pool is made up of women, 50% of the users, 50% of the decision makers are women. So if 100% of the folks leading companies who are innovating technology, who are running the integration companies are men, then we're missing out on really understanding and connecting to the people who are making the decisions and using our products. And so that's where we feel like we can start to connect a little bit better to at least half of our our users and our homeowners, similar to the interior designers. I've watched some salespeople, male salespeople, and the way they try to connect to a female interior designer, and it just doesn't. They just don't connect to the interior designers who are mostly women in that same way. And so, again, it's just missing out on an opportunity where I think, the women on our team, we have a brilliant woman general counsel who has written an incredible paper on tariffs that has been pretty. I just didn't see anything impressive written by any men in this industry about how to proactively go after tariffs in the space. We have women on our team who kind of rewrote the script on how to recruit talent in the space. We have women on this team who have done really exciting things in the marketing space. So, yeah, I think, again, I look at results, and I'd encourage folks to do the same. And also, we've got the other thing about our team is we're bringing people outside the industry. Like, diversity comes in all forms, right? So we've got diverse talent in the form of folks who come from Wall Street, folks who come from pest control, folks who come from franchising, men and women, and then folks who come from inside this industry, all across the country. And I think that's kind of where the magic is happening for our team, and that's working for us.
Yeah. Last thing I have for you regarding the business model and your expansion plan.
Yeah.
Because I think that there is strength in size, especially in this industry, especially when talking to brands about a litany of things, not the least of which is getting input on. I had a conversation earlier about cabling, and just the lack of a uniform cabling system. And I think it started because we were talking about, like, if you find a house that's old enough, you can go fiber, Ethernet, Cat 5, coax, phone lines, knob and tube. I mean, if you go back far enough, you can find all of these different cabling systems transmission
it's like a Frankenstein.
systems. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it feels to me like if the integrators, who are the ones who have to do this, it can provide enough input, then you can affect change. Yeah. And if you're a big enough player, then you can affect change faster. Right. So I imagine too that because the industry is growing and is what it is, that there is a growth strategy. Where do you see your opportunity?
That's certainly one of them is to have a seat at the table with manufacturers to talk about things like innovation, to share learnings from what we're seeing in homes in the field, to say, kind of enough with the bright, shiny objects. We need help with the product that you launched last year, because that's what we're still fixing, and to the same tune, hey guys, when's the next innovation coming? Because we're still, this stuff is getting pretty, old, and the customer is really looking for something, new, and here's where the needs are. So yeah, certainly those are the types of conversations we're having or would like to have with vendors and manufacturers in the form of strategic programs and pricing, fine, and that makes all the sense in the world. But frankly, you could get that from a buying group. We're really, that's fine, but we're looking to kind of take things to another level. Why is a national brand important? And why do we think that's a gap? We think that with a national brand, there's brand awareness, there's the ability to have higher price. There's the impact. There's the ability to have scale in the form of purchasing, so you have better margins. And I'm talking from a franchising perspective. So for an owner who has some gas in the tank but doesn't want to sell their business for 2 times earnings, and might want to partner with us and sell in a few years for 10 or 20 times earnings, which is what I think these businesses ought to be valued at. We can kind of help and get some scale, help that business individually, but then collectively, achieve through scale some of these things that national brands can accomplish. And again, through also partnering with vendors, we think that there's some really, for example, marketing. Something that we've observed is, there's the manufacturers who would love to get into homes, would like to try to use their marketing funds for some reason. And so they're kind of throwing, I think, the funds over the wall to dealers, like, hey, kind of use this money however you'd like. And dealers are like, well, how should I use it? Well, we partner with, New York City marketing agency. We can pool all these marketing funds across, 22 locations and do, right now we're spending $1 million for a test just in Northern California to really look at digital marketing out of home, do influencer campaigns, and really test to see what happens when you do a real deep dive into one location where you've got density. I mean, that's where scale can have an impact. If it doesn't work, great, you kill it. If it works, now I can take it to all my other areas. So that's where we think.
It's interesting too, because it sounds like you're talking about the traditional co-op model of brand funds used in a certain way. And what's interesting is I don't think those funds have been effectively used in a manner in which you're talking about using them.
Right, and I don't think so. And how would you do it? Because which dealer gets the benefit of what? And so I understand where that challenge can come into play. So yeah, we think, and look, we want to help the industry as a whole, right? Because we feel like if we can get more investment coming into the space, we want to help all owners. We know that attempts to this haven't worked in the past, so we really want to make sure that we know a lot of eyes are on us, and we want it to be successful. So, we want it to be successful for us, but we know that there's a lot of folks who are depending on this to be successful, and we do think that if we can be successful, that will help others in the industry. Similar to pest control, right? So 30 years ago, this is kind of where the pest control industry is. Today there are some bigger brands, who have 20% market share, 10% market share, but the smaller mom and pop players are still able to get, a 15 times, 20 times, multiple on earnings, because there's so much interest from financial sponsors and strategics who are wanting to get into the space. That's our kind of vision for this. And yeah, we think that having a national brand here, having that consistency, attracting great talent, that all of those things will be good for the company and for our individual branches.
Do you use, or is the idea to use funds like that to expand the opportunity with potential specifiers, like, for example, to reach out to a group like interior designers? Because I feel, I am stunned, to be honest with you. I think interior designers should be at CEDIA Expo.
Yeah.
They should be here to understand what new business lines, what new brand extensions they can do. And I've used the example similar to an outdoor kitchen. That was territory that used to belong to the landscape architect.
Yeah, right.
But now interior designers have taken that over, and if that adds $250,000 to a project, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Right, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And with the development of safe rooms, that are completely gapped so that you have a true safe room. It's not just about safe walls and safe room doors and bulletproof glass windows.
Right.
There's so much more that goes into that.
Right.
That you need an integrator.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
So is that the idea, is to reach out to groups like that to try to build an industry using adjacent industries?
Yeah, we have certainly partnerships with groups of interior designers and ways to try to educate those, our local interior designers, both at the local level and at the national level. And some of our marketing efforts, while we have a very specific target consumer in mind, the reach will also leak into an interior designer, a custom builder, the target consumer's husband. So we do think that there will be some kind of leakage. I think on the interior designer side, my observation, just from my own personal experience and also from watching our sales guys try to explain this and walking through their clients while the interior, there just needs to be a lot more education and also humility. I think a little bit. It's a little bit like you're such an idiot that you don't understand this tunable lighting. And the interior designer, she just needs to be kind of walked through it a little bit. And the benefits of, or the harmful effects of blue light, for example, and can we just explain that in a little bit of a kind of kinder, gentler way than, you're such a dum-dum that you don't understand this lighting, or showing how setting a scene, how beautiful that can be, and how that can add to all the hard work that went into what she did, and if this all cost $250,000 and she got a piece of that, then you add on the $250,000 for the integration project. Hey, lady, you're leaving a little bit on the table here,
right?
If you wanted to participate in that. So I just think that if there could be just a little bit better partnership. And so, for example, the guys in New York City who we just acquired, the Eni team, they do a wonderful job in terms of partnering with both the custom builder, the interior designer, the architect. They're almost like a self-described therapist and working with their teams.
Love it.
And the homeowner. And I think there is a little bit of that, right? Just trying to kind of walk people through that. A little bit of patience. But yeah, at a national scale in terms of advertising and explaining that to folks. And then also our quarterly service where we're going into a home. And I think that'll also help because this isn't something where it's like a one and done. We're going to have to, it takes some time.
Subscription model.
And we're not even charging the customer.
Really?
We go for free.
So you're the one.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we're going for free.
And thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
This is great.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Really, really nice. Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Hagan. You are listening to part 6 of the ride along from CEDIA Expo, CIX in Denver, Colorado, 2025. You are going to hear from Bob Schuppe of the Resolute Design Group right after this. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease and ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com.
Bob Schuppe is the name. The company is Resolute Design Group. I am the director for the company and one of the founders. And being a smaller company, we do pretty much everything.
Love it. Tell me about CEDIA Expo 2025.
So far, it seems like every CEDIA, and I've been going to them since 1992, there's this kind of a theme of what's important, what the hottest technology is. This year, as you've heard others say, I'm sure, is that it's lighting. There are the bedrock technologies, audio, video, these sort of things that continue on. We see them every year, but their technology is just getting more and more advanced, and the lighting is becoming the next, as I call it, the next frontier.
What is it about the lighting that is new, that is next, that has you excited about it?
Well, I'd even go back a little bit further than that and say that if we have for too long just taken lighting for granted. And business partner talks about how most builders, most architects even, 4 cans and a fan is perfectly good. It's functional light. But here we're beginning to see in a company called Ketra, now part of Lutron, they really, I think, really took it to a new level of using LEDs to be able to tune them to a different kind of light temperature, different quality of light, etc. So what we're just seeing, I think, is kind of them being the ones who really kind of patented a lot of the technology, other manufacturers, other companies coming up with their own variant of it, and just getting creative with what LEDs have brought to the entire industry.
How do you take those findings and those learnings from CEDIA Expo and integrate, no pun intended, but integrate that into your lighting plans on behalf of your clients?
It's still kind of a dizzying thing, and it's something that we're in a kind of an environment right now where there's a blur. Architects are involved, obviously builders are involved, electricians are involved, so we're the ones who, as I talk about, we want to be the technology advocates for our clients. We're the ones who kind of get all this technology and bring it together and kind of figure out the best solution for a client. Going through kind of a discovery process where we figure out what their needs are, what their desires are, what is important in their home, etc., and then just take the technology we see here. And as I often say, is that you can't remember everything you've seen in a show like this, but you just remember that you did see it, and these solutions are there and can be used for a particular need. So we just here it's drinking from a fire hose. It really is, all the technology.
It is drinking from a fire hose.
It is.
And it is too, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to take it back,
Yes.
process it, so that you can work it into, and I'm speaking specific, we're talking about lighting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
There's so much more that you do. But what's so fascinating about this is, as we talk, and lighting, the idea of lighting is not exciting because, just a generalized topic, we think we know everything there is to know about lighting.
Yep.
But we've had the conversation a number of times over the past day and a half. The chronology of lighting itself,
Yep.
going from, when you had full control over your incandescents, but then moving away from that to the horrible CFL days, into the halogen days, into the beginning of LEDs with a binary choice of turning
Yep.
it off or turning it on. And now where we are, it's almost hard to imagine what's next because of what they're doing right now with this LED technology.
Well, yeah, and I think it's not only just what we're doing now and what's coming, but it is the embracing by just the common person and builders and architects and such. We've had an architect we just dealt with recently where they are so fed up dealing with and specifying conventional 4-inch light cans. So when my business partner showed to them, or at least discussed with them, new technology and the fact that these light cans can go away, they were overjoyed. They just saw this new option or new opportunity for them as just like, my goodness, if I never had to specify another light can, I'd be over the moon.
So give me an example. What is the option for a 4-inch can?
There's still built-in cans. It's kind of a misnomer. The kind of the normal Juno or whatever kind of can that you've seen at Home Depot or wherever, that is kind of the old technology that went from a 6-inch to a 4-inch. Now we're even getting down to more of a 2-inch. And now with the light modules, that's the other thing. We're not talking about light bulbs anymore. They're modules, or a light engine, or whatever you want to call it, where these things just have to go into some kind of a housing. It's a low voltage device, so that does give you some opportunities to do things differently. But just the stereotypical light can is what I'm really talking about and how that's going away.
I love that you say that, because one of the other common themes in the conversations that I've been having here is this idea, and I tell the story, that many of the designers I speak with on the podcast, we will inevitably get into their portfolios.
Yeah.
And I will be looking through their portfolios, and as we're talking through it, I will say to them, where are the outlets? Where are the cans? Where's the recessed lighting? How did you put a lighting plan together with none of these things? And they'll say, oh, well, we photoshopped that out. To which my reply is, it seems almost disingenuous to me, because if you create a design and that's the finished product, yet when you want other people to see it, you're editing things out of it. Is that really the authentic representation, and why is it there in the first place? But you don't have a choice But then it's the chicken and egg scenario.
Well, and I think that it's interesting because we finished a project in our market where we put in what's called small aperture speakers. So a very small, low-profile speaker that instead of getting away from these 6 and 8 inch speakers, we're now matching the form factor of light cans, or this new light technology. And we saw some of the professionally taken photographs of the house. They're all gone, and we're lucky because he's allowed us to use these images on our website, but it's like, gosh, it would be nice to be able to see more technology than a TV. But yeah, I think it is disingenuous because it is part of the home. It is really what people need to know does exist in a home. And even though talking about small aperture speakers, there's invisible speakers now as well. So you don't see those.
And that being said, how does it feel, tongue-in-cheek, firmly planted,
Yeah.
how does it feel being in an industry where everyone wants to hide everything you do?
I love it. Absolutely love it. In fact, having started in this industry in 1990, when I still remember an interior designer saying, you audio people are an interior designer's worst nightmare. And it was, because we had big, gigantic speakers and all the stuff that as the technology evolved, in the early days, flush mount architectural speakers didn't exist. We used to get actually box speakers and kind of do some framing up above the ceiling to put those in there. So the fact that we're trying to make technology disappear but still be present is huge.
I have kind of a longing for the good old days where you had in a living room the Infinity House, the Infinity Home speaker system.
Yep.
The back to the old, what was it? Is it Live or Memorex, or was it the Maxell? The one where he's in the chair and his
UDXL2
and his hair's being blown back.
It's funny you mentioned that because we had a client who we engaged with this client and he wants those old style speakers. And we put together a proposal for him where I actually found that image of the guy kicked back in his chair and his hair being blown back and all that. And that appealed to him so much. And in fact, you talk about that because we, as a company, engaged some manufacturers here who had the kind of large scale speakers. And we got some from one of our dealers. And they're luckily sitting in a demo space that my wife and I get to take advantage of now. And her one comment about those, having grown up listening to music and being very serious about it as well, is that, these speakers are not going anywhere. But it is, I think we're hearkening back a little bit to a bygone era when, as we deal more and more with intangible or untouchable content, streaming, I'm hearing more and more about, obviously vinyl is the rage again. People want to be able to touch and feel the content, and also not only that, but own it. You're not paying for a streaming service if you own these 1,000 CDs, which I've been finally getting my CD collection once again available to be able to stream throughout the entire house. So I think there is a hearkening back to a bygone era that's refreshing. I like it.
So my background is in radio.
Okay. Yeah.
I was a music rep for an alternative station in Dallas in the 90s.
Okay.
And part of that gig was my program director every week would bring me remember those old containers that would hold the mail, like in an office?
Yeah.
They would just bring in those containers, those crates. I'd get a crate every week. Here's what's dropping. Every Tuesday, I would get a here's what's dropping. Yep. So my CD collection, I still have a lot of them, right?
Yep.
But here's what's interesting about it, and I'm glad that you brought up vinyl, because I think the speakers, the house speakers, it's a moment that many long for to go back to, but
a simplicity.
Yeah. But here's the thing, the performance is the question. Yeah. If you listen to those CDs and you choose Rattle and Hum versus a record, actual vinyl of Rattle and Hum, you put some cans on and you listen to those two, or you could switch between, you will hear two completely different performances.
They are. And being an engineer myself, I just know that there's a lot to be said about digital. I know that the vinyl, there are the people who are passionate about that and feel that that's still the best representation of sound. I would probably argue that a little bit, but it's funny, you mentioned your days in radio. Early years of me being involved with the company in California, we did these Virgin Megastores across the country. In fact, one was in some towns right outside of Dallas. And so during that time, I acquired a scary number of CDs. And being from Orange County, California, near Los Angeles, we were lucky that we had a great station, KCRW, that was just a wealth of just exposure to content that I think is lacking now. And that's part of what I do, kind of long for the old days, is just being exposed to quality music and where people just cared about it.
Okay, so editor's note. For those who are listening, thank you. I appreciate you. And for those who are hoping to talk more about AV integration, I'm sorry you're going to be disappointed, because we're going to talk about radio and music for a minute.
Love it.
Manhattan Beach,
Yep.
product of the San Fernando Valley in the 1980s.
Yeah.
You talk about KCRW.
Chris
Okay.
Doritas.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm more K-Rock.
Oh, yeah. And 91X. San Diego.
91X, we didn't get in the Valley. We didn't get 91X. But we got KNAC.
Yeah.
KMET.
KNAC. Yep.
KMET.
Yep. KLOS.
KLOS.
Yep.
In college, I was an intern for Mark and Brian.
Great radio station. Great program, I should say.
Yeah.
Yep.
When it was actually
Well,
95.
KMET, that was a tremendous.
KMET was amazing when you had Jim Ladd, Jeff Gonzer, just Steve Downs. You had amazing. That's when you talk about nostalgia. But here's the thing, and here's where I want to challenge you a little bit.
Yep.
You're an engineer, audio engineer,
Electrical.
You're an EE.
Yep.
Okay. So here's the thing. There's no way you can listen to a CD versus a record and tell me that there's no distinction or no difference.
Well, no, there's 100%. There's a distinction
It's
and difference,
entirely
but
different.
Well, it's the sound you prefer. I prefer the clean sound of a well-produced CD. Although a record is good, and the tradition of sitting down and listening to one side of a CD, an LP, going over and turning it over, and listening
B-sides,
to
man,
Yep,
B-sides.
Yep. Well, and not only that, but I mean, the one thing is, I'm passionate about the mix. Who mixed it? Who's the producer? Who's all this stuff? That stuff has fallen to the wayside. It really is sad.
Where did you go to school?
UCI, University of California, Irvine.
As an EE.
Yep.
Fantastic. How does that experience and being a music fan and being an electrical engineer inform the way that you approach CEDIA Expo, the way that you approach the vendors, the exhibitors, the way that you try to obtain new product knowledge?
Well, I'd say that the one thing is, having been doing this stuff since 1990, I realize that there's a lot of excitement about new technologies and such, but having been with the previous company I was with, where we embraced what we called bleeding edge technology and got burned by it. So a big part of what I do, and plus I have this technology in my own home, if it doesn't work, I get a call from my wife. So one of the most important things for me is, it's just got to work. And it's got to be, the company I was with was for a while owned by Best Buy for about 7-8 years or so. And their motto was, it's got to be bulletproof. It must work. And it's the thing, to be able to provide a solution to a client where we know day in, day out, it's going to work reliably, is critical. So I get excited about the new stuff, but I'm always wary. Wait.
And that's why you come to CEDIA Expo.
It is.
CEDIA. That's why.
Yeah, and it's been a 7-year drought for me of going. Last time was in San Diego. But it is vitally important to be exposed to new technologies and also be able to have an influence on manufacturers. To be able to let them see, is like, okay, we tried that didn't work, don't do anything proprietary, just stay with technology we know that will be in 10 or 15 years still with us. So we do get an opportunity, especially when you've been in the industry for as long as I have. Luckily, I'm also fortunate to be part of a buying group and to be on their board, to be able to influence the education of the board members, or I should say the other members of the buying group, but also be able to influence manufacturers. It's key. And they're thirsty for the input we give them.
And that's why you have to come every year.
100%. Yep. Yeah. As much as, and the beauty is, it's Denver, beautiful town, love it.
Right.
I think the last one I went to, as I mentioned, was San Diego, great town, a little bit more challenging now that I live out in North Carolina. But no, we will be back next year for sure. What we have gained from the show, the hassle of it, or losing a few days of business, it's outweighed easily.
It's worth it.
It is, 100%.
Love it. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
There you go. What did I tell you? Hopefully you got a ton out of this, because there was a ton in it. Just amazing. And it's the first time I ever used the term wall acne before. So there's that. and let's make wall acne a thing of the past, shall we? Thank you, Jason, Hagan, Bob. Thank you, CEDIA Expo. Thank you, Emerald. Thank you for all of the support on site. What an incredible opportunity to see what's out there from the show floor at CEDIA Expo 2025, recording live from the VW ID Buzz. Absolutely loved it. Thank you to my incredible partner sponsors, Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, TimberTech, the Best Buy Company, and Shelter Republic. Their sponsorship of Convo by Design allows me to seek out sublime design stories from beyond the work itself and showcase unique personalities, changing the way we live by creating and implementing new ideas and changing the way that we think about design and architecture. And it allows me to present it to you. So please give them an opportunity on your next project. Thank you for sharing this journey of ours. 2026 marks 13 years of constant publication of the podcast with hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads and streams and impressions and listens and all of the ways that you and I interact and engage with each other. So thank you for that. Please keep those guest suggestions coming, as well as thoughts about where you might like to see the show record live in the future. Convo by Design at outlook.com and on Instagram, Convo by Design with an X. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, be well, stay focused and driven so you can rise above the chaos.